Hi, Camp Firefly. Welcome to our virtual tour of bees. I'm Miss Dawn. My neighbor is Mr. Darrell, who will be giving us the tour of his beehives. We're going to learn today why bees are important to this planet, what they do for us. We're going to learn about how they work their hive, how they make the honey, what kind of bees are in there, and who is in charge of that beehive. Not us, but what bee. Have you ever seen a bee fly around you and you run or you swat at it? Have you ever been stung by a bee? Have you had a bee land in your drink? We're going to find out why today they do this. So sit back, enjoy our virtual tour of bees, and I hope you learned something so you can go home and tell your family and friends how important bees are to save on our planet.
Hi, my name is Darrell Voorhees, and I'm a local beekeeper in Kingsville. And today we're going to talk about honeybees and beekeeping. So we have a small little apiary in Kingsville on Mount Vista Road, and we have about 20 hives. And I just want to show you what it's involved as far as keeping bees, how bees behave, the importance of bees, what bees do for us, and how they help us with our vegetables and food. And so I'll just show you some of the hives. So as far as bees and bee stinging, bees will sting out of defensiveness and not out of aggression. They'll sting because either they've gotten pinched or you're swatting at them, or in this case, we want to make sure they don't sting when we go into their hive. So that's why we put on a protective veil that'll protect my head and eyes. And so we can put this on, and then we'll put a pair of gloves on because they usually go towards the hand. So this covers most of the top.
Yep.
All right, so, okay. So we're gonna put gloves on also. The bees will go towards my hands because I'm gonna be reaching in towards their box. So I'm gonna put this one on. And the other thing that we need, this is a smoker. And bees will become a little bit more docile and less defensive if we puff a little bit of smoke and it went out. So let me try to light this. What it is, it's a little bit of cardboard, some paper, and some pine straw in there, and it's just a little bit of smoke.
So does the smoke like relax them, or is that when they try to eat all the honey?
The smoke does relax them, and it puts them into a mode that they think that their hive is in trouble, so they'll kind of retreat. They'll go back into their hive, it'll decrease any aggression that they might have or defensiveness. So let's move some of this stuff out of the way. So this is a dual box, a top and a bottom. The tools that we use as beekeepers is a little pry bar, basically to pop the lid off and to help pull the honeycomb frames out, because the bees will collect tree sap and kind of seal out all the cracks in the hive. So let's take this off. You might want to just be careful yourself, Dawn. Get some smoke. Now, a hive of this size, maybe at this time of year in July, is probably at their peak population, and there could be 50 or 60,000 bees in here.
Oh my. Is that normal for a hive to have that many?
Yep, they could have even more with more stacked boxes higher. Um, this time of year, again, they're at their peak, so there are about that many bees total now, but there's only one queen bee, and the queen bee is the most important bee of a bee colony. The queen is the only bee that is laying eggs and producing offspring. So the majority of these bees are girls, they're female, and but the queen is the most important bee. They all work for the queen. They're all there to provide her with food, a place to lay eggs, and to continue producing more bees.
So what are the names of the bees that are in the hive?
Well, they are honeybees. So there's three types of honeybees. So there's a queen, there's a worker bee, and there's a drone. The worker bees are the female, the queen's a female, the drones are the males, and they're meant, really only job is to fertilize the queen so that she can produce eggs. So let's take a little peek. So right now the bees are still flying back and forth. They're coming and going in order to forage food, and they're bringing in a little bit of nectar from flowers. There's not as much pollen this time of year, but early in the spring there's a lot of pollen, and they'll collect the pollen in order to save it for what they call as bee bread. So they mix, it's like a mixture of honey with pollen, and that's their food source, which is high in protein.
Now, pollen comes from what?
Pollen comes from trees and plants that are blooming. Their leaves are opening up, and pollen is just part of that that process in the leaf. So let's have a look. It's been a while since I've been in this hive, so but they look like they're doing pretty well.
Wow.
So there are a lot of bees on here. They're in here working, and I put in a little bit of pollen patty, which is a simulated pollen food, and they're eating that because of the lack of natural pollen. And
So what do they do at wintertime since there's no flowers blooming? Or
that's a good question. So what they do during the summertime is they collect pollen, they collect nectar in order to make honey, and they store that away. That's their winter storage food. They will eat the honey that they've stored away during the year in the wintertime. But what they'll do in the wintertime is the population decreases, but the queen still stays there, and they'll cluster around the queen when it gets very cold. They cluster around the queen, generate heat by their body movements, and so it's they do survive, but it's a little bit of a difficult thing because our type of winters become a little bit warmer during sometimes in days. Most of the time it's cold. During those warm days, the bees will fly. They're using energy and that they really should have to survive the entire winter time.
what is the jar in the front of their farm?
This is right now it's empty, but this is a jar that had sugar water in.
Oh.
And the sugar water is right now is a food for the bees, and it has tiny little holes that the bees will stick their tongue through and suck out, kind of like a straw, the sugar water. And
So what happens when they swarm? Why do they swarm, I should say?
The bees swarm because it's a natural process that they want to propagate and make another colony. What happens is during this time of year, the hive gets quite full. And when they know that it's just too full to have all the bees, they'll start producing queen cells and swarm cells in order to get ready to make a new queen. The existing queen flies off to a temporary location with maybe half of the bees that are here, and that is a swarm. So they're looking for a new house, a new hive to start their colony.
So before they leave, do they eat much as honey as they can to take with them?
They do. They try to load up on honey, and that's called honey gouging. And it's in order to have enough food in their system to be able to make that trip, as well as get started with a new hive.
Okay.
So bees and the weather are two things that are dependencies. Right now it's very cloudy. There's a storm getting ready to come in, and the bees kind of lose their built-in GPS abilities. They use the sun and the infrared light that comes from the sun, the ultraviolet light, in order to navigate, and that's used as a navigation aid. Bees will remember exactly where their hive is. If they fly off, they can fly away and looking for food, foraging for food, up to 2 miles.
Oh my.
If they really need to, maybe even further. But they will come back to the exact same location, and they use the sun and different landmarks like houses and trees and roads as guides, kind of like a road map of where they've come from and where they're going to come back to.
So why are they important to our planet? To save the bees, why is it important?
Right, so there's a big effort to help keep the bees. The bees are needed for many reasons. One reason is to make honey, and when you see a jar in the grocery store of honey, that honey has come from a hive like this. That's one reason. The other reason is for produce, fruits and vegetables, some of those things, and also nuts. Almond nuts need honeybees in order to pollinate trees, to transfer pollen from a male to a female tree and produce nuts. And the same goes for pollinating certain fruit plants and vegetable plants. So,
because if we didn't have the bees to do that, we wouldn't have vegetables or nuts
we would
or
lose that. We would not have those fruits and vegetables and those things that need pollination unless we manually self-pollinate it, and that's not an easy thing to do. The bees make it very easy for us. So that's the main reason that we need bees.
Okay. What are you going to do now?
So we open up the hive. I'm going to take out a frame. The bees may start to fly up a little bit more, and
you smoke them.
But I'll just show you a frame of a honey frame, and then a frame of brood. Brood is where the queen has laid eggs, and they are producing more honeybees.
How can you tell which one is the queen? How can you tell that?
The queen is a little bit larger than the other worker bees. She has a larger tail end, and
do you mark her when you find her sometimes?
I have not marked these queens, so it's very difficult to find her. She could be in this top box or the bottom box. Right now I don't think we're going to be able to find her very easily. But I'm going to take out a frame of honey and show you that. And then we'll take out a frame of brood. The honey is usually stored on the sides, the outer edges, and the brood is typically stored in the center. So during the winter time, when the bees are clustering around the queen, they're basically centered in the middle of the hive box. So I use this tool to I'll take this frame out. We want to be very gentle. So they haven't, this is still pretty bare. They haven't really started to build out any comb on that one yet. But this one,
Yeah, I see you being very gentle and they're not stinging you. I guess
right,
when you smoke them and
right,
stuff
just
like that.
being gentle. I'm not disturbing their hive very much. Now this is a very heavy frame
Oh, that has honey.
of honey, and it has a lot of bees. So on this side,
Oh.
you want to get a little close up.
Um,
The lighter color is honey, and the inner edge is the brood, where the queen has laid eggs, and there are bees that are going to be emerging in about a week probably. There's more.
so they're the eggs of where there's bees inside them.
There are the eggs that have been covered over with wax. So that's a great looking frame.
Yeah, a lot of honey on that.
Yep. And let me show you one more. I'm going to be real gentle, not pinch them.
How long have you been doing this?
Actually, I got started by your husband, Tom, about 4 years ago.
Oh,
And so I started out with 2 hives then, and I enjoyed it. So the next year I had 7, the following year I had about 10. And so for the past 2 years I had about 20 hives, and that's about what I, in the backyard I've got about 10, in the front yard there are about 10. So it's fun. It's a wonderful hobby.
and you have to be very patient.
It's just easy. And they use that propolis to kind of glue these frames down. So there's more bees,
Whoa,
more brood, more eggs.
my goodness.
There's some clear liquid that's some nectar. So that's pretty much what the inside of the honey or the hive looks like.
That's really cool. I'm being very patient here. There's bees flying around my head, but
Yes.
I'm good.
All right. So the bees, you know, again, the bees are very important to us in this planet. They sting and they hurt, but the advantages of having a beehives are fun. It's a great hobby. You can produce your own honey if you like. You learn about bees. There's so much to learn about bees. It's an intriguing subject.
What bees don't sting? What are they called? The honeybees.
The drones won't sting. They don't have a stinger.
Oh.
I forget what I was going to say, but
It's all good.
that's basically it.
We thank you for showing us all your hives, some of your
Appreciate
hives.
it. And if you'd ever like to stop by and take a look and learn more, you're certainly welcome to do that. Again, we're Suncrest Bees on Mount Vista Road in Kingsville, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Darrell. We really appreciate it.